Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar on how to select the right heat press for printing shirts in your shop. I'm your host, Zach Dewhurst, the Business Development Manager at DecoNetwork, and our guest this week is Mike Ryan, the Dealer Manager at Hotronix. How's it going, Mike?
Doing great, Zach.
Mike, Hotronix has been around since what? The 80s that they've been started making heat presses? Is that about right?
That's about right, but actually the company goes back into the 30s too, as far as other divisions that are part of Group Stall, which is our corporate name. So, but when it comes to heat presses, Hotronix got into the heat press business seriously. I want to say in the late 80s.
Because essentially you have Stalls, a parent company, and then they have Hotronix, and you can go to Stalls website, you can buy HTV and a wide range of products, and even Transfer Express. So if you think Stalls, you think quality, and again, they manufacture the Hotronix line of heat presses that are essentially the best you can buy in the industry. I'm a little biased. I'm a Hotronix dealer, have been for years. And if you go to a trade show, you will see more Hotronix heat presses at the show because it's the best press you can buy. Whether you're doing a Max, a Fusion, or a Fusion IQ, every one of them are well made, and they're made here in the USA, right, Mike?
That's correct. And let me throw something out just to clarify, because this comes up a lot. I'm sure a lot of the people in the audience are probably thinking along the same lines. Our corporate name is Group Stall. Group Stall has many divisions in there, and in those divisions, there's Stalls Hotronix, there's Stalls.com, there's Transfer Express, and those are the companies that you tend to hear the most about. You're going to start hearing more about a company called One Step Paper. They deal with paper with DTF coming as prevalent as it is. You're going to hear more about them. But those four companies are the divisions of Group Stalls are um, are the most noticeable in our market. Hotronix makes the heat presses and the heat press accessories. We sell these through our network of dealers. We do not sell direct. Dealers include independent dealers, which would be the people in the audience, Zach, and then there's what we call group dealers, which would be Stalls.com and Transfer Express and One Step Paper. So, we treat those three divisions as a customer, just like we would treat any individual, any independent dealer. So it can be very confusing out there. And if I could tell you how many times I made that explanation over the years, I would have been long retired. But that's okay. That helps us to explain the story.
And the one you mentioned there, One Step Papers, it is the least known of the group. I've actually bought transfer paper and now DTF film from One Step Papers for a good 10 years. By far the widest range of paper that you can use for printing plastisol transfers. I mean, they have sublimation. There's just a wide range. If you can heat press it as a transfer, One Step Paper is going to sell that film or paper to actually, be your carrier for the ink to then be applied. So yeah, One Step Papers even has when it comes to like DTF film, everybody's trying to find that true hot peel, and One Step does even sell a cold and a hot peel. Very impressive. And what I really liked about One Step, and really the whole Stalls group, is the amount of knowledge and willingness to share that knowledge so that customers are put in the best position to make a purchasing decision, or if they're having problems. It's just a nice team, and nobody has more education content, I feel, out there than the Stalls group. Again, whether it's heat presses, HTV, or plastisol transfers, you're going to find a lot of great education, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to select the right heat press for your shop, because we're in an industry where we have mom and pops, we have the big shops, we have a lot of different decoration processes. If your main decoration method is DTG, you may want to go with a different press than if you were primarily doing DTF or HTV. There's pros and cons and different capabilities with some of the presses, but you're always going to be happy if you're buying a Hotronix press. Again, I'm a little biased, but you can go to the trade shows and you will see more Hotronix pieces of equipment than any other heat press, and there's many reasons why. Number one being the quality. Heat presses, they range in price, but it's a lot cheaper than buying an embroidery piece of equipment or a screen print or really anything else. And that's why I think it's always a great idea when you're talking about a heat press to go with the top quality, which again is going to be your Stahl's Hotronix line. So Hotronix, Mike, you guys have 3 lines of equipment, and they're kind of for different budgets. So you have the Max line of presses, and anytime you think of Max, we think of black, right? These presses are black. They come in both a clamshell and even a hat press. So we're going to talk a little bit about presses for printing flat products, primarily your garments and shirts, and then we'll also talk just a little bit about heat pressing hats, which is also gaining more and more popularity, and we're actually going to do another webinar with Stahl's on their wide range of patches and emblems and the 360 IQ hat press, which is revolutionary in several different ways, and we're even have one here to actually talk about. But first we have the Max. And would you consider this kind of like an entry-level press, Mike? I mean, how do you like to describe the Max line of presses?
Well, the Max line is for low volume and entry-level press. There's a lot of presses out there that advertise for that area. But this press is built in the USA. It's built in Carmichael's, Pennsylvania, which is about an hour south of Pittsburgh. This press, along with the other Hotronix presses. So these are all US-based made presses, which means the quality and the service that goes with it is going to be much higher than what we call offshore presses. And those are presses that are imported, and they're extremely inexpensive, but they're also extremely ineffective, and service is tough on there. So the Max presses are entry-level press. It has less bells and whistles on it than as opposed to the automatic release press, which we'll talk about, and that's the silver press. And it's not quite built as ruggedly because, again, it's low volume. And being such, the warranty is not as good as the Hotronix, which are the silver presses. So entry-level, less expensive, less bells and whistles or features. And then we step to the Hotronix heat presses. And what you see there is the automatic release, and this is more ruggedly built than the Max. It has the top warranty on there. It has more features or so, more displays too. So you obviously have heat, time, and pressure on these presses. Well, the clam has those except the pressure. So that's a step up in quality and volume.
And then tell us a little bit about the Fusion IQ series.
Okay, so the Fusion IQ is the beginning of the smart presses, and by smart presses I mean it does everything else that the 2 previous presses do, but it also monitors production, and it has management controls. So when it comes to management controls, you can set that press up to where it's locked out. The operator cannot go in and make any changes of heat, time, and pressure. They would have to know the password to be able to go in there and to do that. It can be set up to where it will turn on automatically. So if your day starts at 7 in the morning, you can set up to where it will turn on at 6:45 so that you're ready to go at 7, and then at the end of the day it'll turn off the same way. It allows you to input all the various transfers that you work with. So there's a lot of Stahl's has all their press graphic products, and you have other companies that have theirs, and dealers tend to use a variety of these. So what you can do is take that the instructions for each transfer that you use and input it into the Hotronix, the Fusion press. So when you need to go from job to job, you pull up the screen, you press the transfer that you want, it will automatically adjust to time and heat on the heat press. Now, it won't adjust pressure because this is a manual press, but when you take a step up to the air fusions, it will adjust the pressure as well. So, and then the other part of the IQ is that it tracks production, and it will track it by person, the person, the operator, by the press, by the job, and any exceptions that that the operator may do if they don't follow the complete instructions. I mentioned before, you can load in the instructions for a particular transfer, and say it takes 30 seconds to put that transfer on. That's the requirement. Well, the operator might stop the machine at 20 seconds or 25 seconds because they're in a hurry. They want to get done. And you would never know it until that transfer starts having a problem. And then the customer, hopefully he'll call you, but if he doesn't call you and he has a problem, then the dealer has the problem. So it tracks information, and it does it in real time. You can pull up your phone at this very second and find out what that press is how it's working. So there's a lot more to it, and if you're the type of shop that really needs to have these strict controls, this press has it. Any IQ press has them.
And there's really, I mean, you don't see that type of technology with any other press, really, right? I mean, I don't know of one that I can remotely access and look at production, turn it on, turn it off. I mean, that's incredible technology, and Hotronix has pioneered it, right, Mike?
That is correct, and you're right. No one has that. It's a very nice feature, and other manufacturers tend to, when they recognize something, they follow, and that hasn't happened yet. Now, the closest thing we come to it is the offshore press that try to imitate the Hotronix. They try to make it look like it, but any smart shopper would know that knockoff Fusion does not have that technology in there, and it's important to know that.
I mean, Mike, I've got my Fusion right here from 2010, and it doesn't do everything that IQ, because before we had the Fusion IQ, it was just the Fusion. But still, a lot of that groundbreaking technology is still in here. I can store all of my jobs and so forth. I mean, it's really a smart press. The way I like to kind of look at these three presses, it's kind of like that Max was your old school flip phone, your Hotronix became the BlackBerry, and the Fusion IQ is your smartphone. It's your iPhone. All three will make that phone call, but they each have, extra capabilities that can be groundbreaking, So if you're on a budget and you're not doing a lot of printing, the Max line is a great line of presses. If you're, again, on a budget, you may want to look at one of the Hotronix, and then the Fusion IQs, again, have all those little bells and whistles, which means it's a little bit more expensive. But at the end of the day, what's most important when you're heat pressing something is to have an accurate time, temperature, and pressure. I don't care how fancy the touchscreen is and all that, Mike. If I cannot have accurate time, temperature, and pressure, nothing else matters. I want to properly transfer it onto the garment, and like you just mentioned, I want it to actually be properly cured. And if you're going cheap and you're looking at those offshore presses, you are often going to be sacrificing an accurate temperature more than anything else. Pressure is going to be a lot of feel, especially if you're using like a clamshell. Time, any press should be able to count down, 1 second at a time. That's not difficult. It's the temperature. And if you don't have consistent temperature throughout the entire heating element, you will have cold spots, and you will have problems either with actually transferring the print or actual durability issues as well. That's another thing I think is misconception. I want it to transfer well, but it has to be durable, Mike. I mean, what good is it if it transfers, but then it washes out, in a couple washes. It's no good. And again, the peace of mind when you buy quality, you're going to be putting out a consistent quality product that your customer is going to like. And with the evolution of some of these processes like DTF, heat pressing is more popular than ever. I mean, I would argue, Mike, the majority of shops, how you get started, you buy a heat press. That's the first piece of equipment I bought. But I bought that offshore press. And I pulled my hair out. In my defense, I was 19 years old. I'm in college. I'm on a budget. I didn't even know much about Hotronix. I bought that press, and my customer came back, for one of my jobs. Look, it's coming off. And I'm like, oh, no. And then that's when I was like, you know what? I need to look for that U.S.-made heat press. And that's when I bought my Fusion in 2010. And a well-made press can last a long time. And this press is also, cured thousands of pre-treated garments, which will do more wear and tear on a press than almost any other thing. But a well-made press like this, Mike, they last a long time, and that's why it's worth buying quality. Again, you want to buy quality with any piece of equipment, but with a heat press, it's a no-brainer.
You mentioned several times that you bought that press, that Fusion behind you, which was not an IQ, in 2010. Well, it's 2024 now. That's 14 years ago. And so since you're still using it, that time, temperature, and pressure is still accurate on that press. So everything you say is correct. You've got to buy quality, and when you have good quality, you're going to have good service as well. And our tech support team is second to none. When I go to these trade shows, I get compliments all the time about our tech support team. So that's included. That's part of the decision.
Yep, and full disclosure. So these presses have warranties, and a few different warranties. So you have your parts, your labor, the heating element. That's the most important part of the entire heat press because it's where the heat is. They have a lifetime warranty on them. So by some miracle, if you ever did have a problem with the heating element, it's covered for the lifetime of the press. Right, Mike?
That's correct. Lifetime warranty on the element for all the presses.
And Mike, I actually, again, back to my full disclosure, years ago, like 3 years after I bought the press, we were curing DTG prints, and I wanted a lot of pressure. And I played with the press, and I kind of found a way to increase the pressure, and I cranked down on it, and I broke it. I did something I shouldn't have done, and I was 22, I'm big and strong, and I break the press. And it's like, oh no, there's no way I'm a welder and I'm going to fix it, what I broke. So I'm in Ohio, neighboring state, Pennsylvania, drove over there, dropped off the press, spent some time in the area for a couple hours, gave it back to me, drove it home. I didn't pay a dime. They actually replaced my covers, and they fixed a couple other tiny things that I kind of banged up on it. So I can attest that the quality is incredible. It's 14 years old, and Hotronix service is also incredible. Whether it be actually needing to drop it off or ship it, they're going to take care of you in the warranty on the equipment. I can attest. I've never had an issue. I've sold, probably 70 to 100 of these Fusions over the years. And I have never actually had a customer contact me, say they actually had a problem with the press. And if they did, again, Hotronix support is incredible. You can easily raise a ticket with the support staff, and you're going to be back up and running with minimal effort, unless you did something stupid like me, and that is finagle with it and crank it. But hey, Hotronix bailed me out. And then when it came time to buying a new Air Fusion, Mike, I'm a baseball fan like you. anybody who likes baseball, you got to check out PNC Park in Pittsburgh. I could have had it shipped to me, but I was really wanted to go check out that ballpark. So it was very easy just to go over to Pennsylvania, grab it, and then go check out the Pirates Stadium. It was a lot of fun. Uh, so purchasing factors, what press we go with comes down to kind of several factors. First is going to be budget. What can you afford? Over here we have the Air Fusion tabletop, and that's what you actually see. So it's a pneumatic press, meaning that it is air driven when it comes to lowering the top platen onto the bottom, when it comes to raising, and then actually swinging it out. So there's a lot less labor. And anytime you have that automation and less labor, you're going to pay more. So this press is driven by air. It costs more than this press. Not everybody can afford that. So budget is going to be your first factor. Space. How much space do you have to operate? If you're using a pneumatic press, you have an air compressor, which means you need more space for that area. So pneumatic doesn't always mean you can. Transportability. You see a lot of heat pressing at events. When I first bought this press, I went to a few wrestling tournaments, and we would print shirts at the event. I cannot take a pneumatic press and easily do that necessarily. And even if I did have a little air compressor, which again, both of these require some juice when it comes to electricity, it's loud. So transportability is also pretty important. What your primary use is, are you primarily applying DTF, DTG? That may influence what heat press you go with and the volume you're doing for that process. But you should also think about future use. You don't want to just think about today. You want to think about in the future, and often go with something maybe a little bit, that you're not ready for. We're again, they're not free, but we're not talking about spending tens of thousands of dollars like a lot of embroidery and screen printing equipment. What, Mike? I think the Fusion IQ is like $2,650. So that's your top of the line manual press. And then the pneumatic version, I'm not going to throw a number out there, but it's around twice as much, or a couple $1,000s more. But again, we're not talking tens of thousands. Once we went pneumatic, we have never looked back. My employees kind of refuse to use this thing, if I'm being honest. We rarely use this. Is more of an emergency. Hey, we're overwhelmed. Absolutely still works. We actually use it for sublimation application more than anything else at this point. And then again, like I said, access to air. You can't drive a pneumatic press without the air. And that's not always easy, and again, can be loud. I've sold a lot of these Fusions to schools. A school can't necessarily have an air compressor running all the time, making noise. So what press you go with, again, it'll come down to your budget, your space. If you need to have it moved around to events and so forth, what's your primary use? What are you potentially going to use it for in the future? And do you have easy access to an air compressor to drive it? Mike, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Well, there's as far as the air compressors, you're right in everything you said about the air compressor. And when you do choose an air compressor, you got to make sure you get enough horsepower and enough tank size. And if you look at the literature, they will say the minimum horsepower and tank size. But there's also a silent air compressor, and a silent air compressor is the loudness is about, I want to say 45 decibels, which is about as loud as a conversation if you're standing next to each other. So there are these silent air compressors that can be used, but they are a lot more expensive than an air compressor that you would get at the local hardware store. But it's available out there, and it's important in that a lot of people in our industry are doing their business at home. They might be in a bedroom or a basement or a garage, and you need that silent air compressor. So it is available, but everything else said about being loud and such, that is the case. So
Yeah, and Mike, thank you so much for bringing that up because that was another mistake I made. I went and I bought an air compressor. It had the juice, it had the horsepower and everything I needed, but your traditional air compressor is louder. And I don't know if this is one. I think it may have been one that Hotronix pushed at some time, but I highly suggest anybody watching this check out California Air Tools. They have a line of much quieter air compressors compared to your typical. And what I also like, Mike, it's silver and blue. It literally looks like it just goes with it, and it's all
yeah,
pretty. So California Air Tools makes a great air compressor that's much quieter. And like a lot of things, I like to keep employees happy. And hearing that loud one, it was worth the money to buy the nicer. I just wish I did it from the get-go. So thanks for bringing that up, Mike.
yeah. Granger is another good source for that, and then
Yeah.
they're all over the country.
Yeah. You get what you pay for, right?
Right.
So the Hotronix difference, like we just mentioned, they're manufactured in Pennsylvania. When it comes to heat presses, when it comes to pretty much any piece of equipment, I really want to buy American, Japanese, or German made most of the time. I trust those three to manufacture something great. But when you actually are buying American made, and if you ever have a question or an issue, it's incredibly easy to work with them and get it taken care of. So, like you said, Mike, the tech support is incredible. And again, I've dealt with it. Things are going to break, especially if I'm on the equipment. I mean, I'm the worst. My employees over here just like shaking his head and laughing. Like, you don't want me on a press. I don't really play with them too much anymore. But I've broken my fair share of things. And Mike, you and I once talked about it. I'm not great at fixing something. I'm actually the worst at taking. I could take something apart. I cannot put it back together properly. Um, so I had just a very small issue with my Fusion IQ. There was kind of a little bit of software issue, and tech support sent me a very well documented PDF. Hey, this is how you update it and make it work. I am useless at this. I mean, I work, at DecoNetwork. I'm good at one piece of software. Outside of that, I am terrible. So I struggled to actually do it based on the PDF. And they asked me, hey, you can do this first, and then if it doesn't work, we'll send you one. And the next day, I had it. And what I love about Hotronix again is all the engineering that goes into it. It was plug and play. I had the press perfectly back to normal within 2 minutes of receiving the box with the part I just needed to swap out. And it didn't cost me a dime. All I had to do was send the old part back to Hotronix because they're smarter than me and could fix it. But yeah, personally, I can attest, one, you're not going to have many problems with the Hotronix press if you use it properly. And if you ever do, the support is incredible. There's a lot of peace in mind. You get what you pay for, and the value of buying American made is just, very high. And the warranty, like we kind of mentioned, the heating element, lifetime. Anything happens to it, it's covered. 5 years on the frame. If you did what I did and you all of a sudden try to create extra pressure and you crank on it and you break a weld somehow, which was, again, I'm just so strong at 21 years old, I did. It's covered. And it was so easy. It didn't cost me a dime, and they did actually more than I even asked. And then the 2 years on the electronics. I bought this press. It was more of a software little thing because this press is so intelligent that it was so easy just to, hey, we'll send you the part, just send us back the old one, and we were good. So I've taken advantage of the bottom two. Never have I had any problems with the heating elements. You can buy temperature strips and test, which you should do on your press. And when you test the different corners and the center. But I've never had, even on my 14-year-old press, actually, have a cold spot or any issues there because it's just so well made. What am I
I
forgetting,
like
Mike?
these presses are built knowing that the press owner, if he has any problem, he doesn't want to have to send it back. We don't want the press owner to have to send it back. When that happens, you're down anywhere from at least 1 day to get there and 1 day to get back, up to maybe 5 days to get there and 5 days to get back. So that's a lot of downtime. So nobody wants that. So these things are designed to be able to be fixed pretty easily in the field. And Josh, you mentioned, or Zach, you mentioned that the documentation that the tech support offers is really incredible. A lot of pictures, list step by step, and that. And I'm similar to you that I don't fix a lot of things. Something breaks at my house, I'm worried about how to fix it. I'm just going to have to buy a new one. That's how I am. But the tech support people, I've known times where they're on the phone with the person as he's doing the work himself and just talking him through how to get this corrected. So it's about as easy as it can get. And now, and you mentioned that ticket system. Used to be when you called the tech support, you're on the phone, you waited till that support person was off, and you might be on there for an hour. We sell a lot of heat presses, a lot. We've had to make some changes on how we handle tech support calls, and that's where we went to the ticket system. And by that, it's better if the press operator initiates the ticket, and you just go to our website, go to the support link, and it tells you how to do that. It's better if the owner does it rather than the dealer. A lot of times dealers want to take care of their customer and they want to be side by side with them, and that's fine. That's good. But if you have to go through a third party, you can lose information. So it's best that the press owner initiates the ticket and let our tech team deal directly with that person. It runs so much more efficiently. But when you create a ticket system, you basically go in line, and when the next operator is available, they're going to call you back. So you're not sitting there online, holding online, which could be hours. And it's a much better way of doing. We've been doing this now for, I'm going to say, 2 to 3 years. And like anything else, when you first start, there's always hiccups, which we did. We've corrected those. We've expanded the number of people in that department. So it's really working well now. So that ticket system is really a nice feature.
And once you've been, once you're working with that person, you may go back and forth with just a couple emails, but I start to gain a little bit of a relationship with the tech. Like, oh, you've been, it's, and Hotronix just does it right. It's service is not really, it shouldn't be that hard. Put yourself in the shoes of a customer. What would you want if you were the one who had bought the press and had an issue? And Hotronix definitely can put themselves in the shoes of the customer and help them in a wide range. And yeah, absolutely. Again, I have definitely been there myself. So heat presses, they come in a wide range of sizes. 16 by 20 is essentially your standard size press. And when you select a press, again, don't think about what you need today. Think about long term. You don't want to go with an 11 by 15 press and then learn that, oh, well, my average print size is 12 by 18. That's just not going to work. And, if it's a 16 by 20 press, your max range is more like 14 by 18. You want to have at least an inch around the size to actually apply whatever transfer. But your 16 by 20 is by far the most popular size. And when we're saying these sizes, you are really talking about the top and the bottom heating element, but really it's that top one because Hotronix has a lot of different bottom platens that can be interchanged, talking about a little bit. But when you're choosing your press, you need select that correct size. And again, if you're printing a lot of smaller products, so like this image here is the Hotronix lowrider. So it kind of sits low on the table, so the product that's being decorated can actually sit on the table and easily applied. But a press like this would be great for printing neck tags or something small, left chest or so. But Hotronix also makes it extremely easy to take off a platen, drop on a smaller bottom platen, and 5 seconds. And now this 16 by 20 press can do everything that lowrider can, other than I can't kind of sit my garment on there as easily. But again, buy for what you need and now and what's going to make life easier. Maybe you don't have this big space and that lowrider is all you need. So when you're choosing your heat press and you're thinking about what size to go with, big thing is, I say, Mike, is think about the future. 16 by 20, I got to think that's the bulk of what shops are purchasing. That all sound about right?
That's correct. That's the biggest size. Now, if there are some companies that will make a larger press for wide format, for whatever reasons, we have chosen not to go that direction. We have so many things on our plate that you can't do everything, at least not everything right away. So, we're working on some added features to our current line of heat presses, and unfortunately, the anything larger than the 16 by 20 it's not in sight for us right now. But that could change at any time, and
it's not very often you need.
Yeah, that's just other companies focus on mugs and plaques and plates, that type of thing. We focus on garments.
Well, that's what we're primarily heat pressing more than anything else. And, dropping a logo on the front chest, left chest, that 16 by 20 is going to do pretty much everything you need. And that's why it's the most popular size by far. So we've been talking about, your traditional shirt presses. Now we're going to talk just a little bit about the Hotronix 360 IQ hat heat press. And this is pretty revolutionary. Mike, you dropped a fact to me the other day that kind of blew my mind a little bit. Did you say this is the second best-selling press from Hotronix now?
Well, actually, when it comes to cap presses, it's the number one cap press. It only would be second to the Fusion. Fusion is the number one selling heat press in the world, and this I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't a close second. This press has just taken off tremendously, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years or so. It's an IQ like the Fusion, so it has all the production and features and the management controls in there. It's got upper and lower heat, as you see on the screen. That is something that I don't know of any other press that has upper and lower heat. The bottom platen is a little bit different than anything you'll see out there. It's tapered. So on some other cap presses, when you put your cap on there and you heat print on there, it oftentimes leaves a crease to where at the edge of the cap. But if on the 360, if you look at that bottom platen, the backside is tapered, so it doesn't leave that little mark there, the crease mark across the top. So, and the reason we call this the 360 is because you can actually you can heat print on all sides of this press or this cap. All you do is just rotate it around. And if you look at the Major League Baseball, that little baseball guy on the back of the collar there, you can use that press to turn that around to put that back of the collar or back of the head number on there. When it comes to youth sports, a lot of the youth kids like to have their number on the back of their hat. That's pretty popular. Well, this press will do that. In my day, we would just write it in the bill, but technology has gotten better.
Hey, now we can print a bill.
That's right. It looks better.
So a few different things that you absolutely mentioned there. One, this has only been around a couple years though, right? I mean, this isn't even 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, it probably not. I
Because
might be closer to three or so.
I had the old version, which is still sold. And it's again, there's three lines of hat presses. You have your Max, you have your Hotronix, and you have your IQ series. And I really love this press. One, because it's an IQ, just like the Fusion and Air Fusion. I can store a bunch of jobs in here. And I think it's actually more necessary potentially than the others. Why? Because what's gained a lot of popularity in the past few years are the wide range of heat applied patches and emblems. You know, back in the day, we would have to always use Velcro or actually sew a patch onto the product. This 360 IQ has the top and the bottom heating element, because that bottom heating element is really going to make it possible to apply all those different types of patches and emblems. Because if you don't have it, you're going to struggle a lot more. And that tapered capability, to the average person, it's going to go over their head like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. Actually, it's really, really cool because putting a hat on a hat press, that tapered capability it's really groundbreaking. It's huge. I had the old one, and again, it's still a great press, but it has different interchangeable platens. And if you look at this, it is just your traditional curved, and it's kind of a rectangle that's curved, versus that tapered would be kind of cutting it down like that. And I just cannot stress how awesome it is and how much easier it is to be doing a dad hat, a flat bill, anything. And again, we're going to be doing a webinar with Stalls. And I'm real excited. I just want to do a little teaser, but what you can do with these patches and emblems. So everything from a printed patch to you have real leather, faux leather, suede, 3D embroidery. You have the flex style, which comes in a lot of different styles. You have PVC, you have traditional embroidery, you have the combination of the two. It's just incredible, all of the different types of patches and emblems. These are gaining huge popularity, and that's why this press is also such a great seller. I mean, it's never been easier, since the past like 5 years, to put out a hat that is something other than your traditional embroidery or printing. And something else, I don't know if you really said it, Mike. There's nothing stopping you from using this to heat press a sleeve, the locker tag, the inside of a tag. So if you're wanting, kind of that 4x4 capability, but you're also thinking in the back of mind, you know what, I kind of would like to print hats, you may want to think about this. Now, actually, I should take back my 4x4 because it's not that big, but it'll allow me to do the bulk of any left chest and, again, sleeve or back neck, because that's what we like to use ours for outside of just the patches and emblem. It is an auto pop, so if you bring it down, it has a magnet. Once the timer hits 0, it pops up. It's incredibly well made. I absolutely love this press. If you're looking for a hat press, it's a no-brainer. This is by far the best. And I see a lot of these now at shows and in shops, Mike. I mean, just like anything Hotronix makes, it's the best that you can go with.
Yeah, it really has taken off in the last few months with the as you showed before, the types of patches and pins that you put on caps, and that's really been the driving force.
I mean, I look at like an NFL jersey, and you see the little NFL emblem. Having that bottom heat will really help get a true nice transfer and know that it's properly been cured. Bottom heat has its advantages in a few different ways, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, about the power platen, which, again, it's groundbreaking technology. Hotronix is always the first, and then you guys have a lot of patents. You can't all copy. So when it comes to pressing, you kind of have three different like kind of labor methods. You could be completely manual. So if I'm using this press, I physically bring it down, I physically raise it. If I'm using the 360 IQ, I physically bring it down. The magnetic automatically releases. That's the auto pop. This pneumatic, because it's driven by air, it's going to come down powered by air. It's going to come up powered by air. It's going to swing out by air. So again, you have your Fusion IQ, actually Fusion IQ. Auto open clam is your kind of most common. Any auto open is going to be a clam, right, Mike? I've never seen an auto pop that wasn't a clam. I mean, technically this is a clam. And then we have the Air Fusion, which does come in two different kind of model setups. This is a tabletop, so it's actually not on its own pedestal stand. I'm able to put it on a card or a table, and then you actually can get it with a stand version, which we have another slide. But in my shop, again, we had a couple Fusion IQs. They always worked, but once I went to the pneumatic, oh my gosh, my employees were so much happier. Like they looked forward to printing. Not that heat pressing is a bad job. I mean, we throw on the TV and we watch shows and movies, and it's amazing how productive you can be. And it's a lot quieter than running embroidery machines and screen printing. You can have fun printing with a heat press. I always joke that it's printing money when you're using a heat press. The learning curve for it, Mike, is so minimal. It's got to be the easiest decoration process is heat applying something. As long as, again, you're following the right instructions, which is why those IQ presses are so valuable because, I mean, let's just use stalls, for example. Between Transfer Express has a lot of different types of plastisol transfers. Some of them are applied at different pressures and temperatures. There's a lot of different HTV that are applied at different temperatures and pressures. And now DTF, there's, hot peel, cold peel. It's a lot to remember. And maybe you want to have a chart on the side of the wall, or you can simply click a button on this smart press and it's going to change those variables for you. It just makes things easier. Again, I absolutely love the IQ presses. There's a reason the Fusion IQ is the best-selling press in the world. Even outside of the States, everybody wants this. They'd rather buy the top quality line. Mike, anything I missed here? Again, you're kind of all manual, you're semi-manual, and then pneumatic. Man, the labor goes down so much. Yes, this press is more expensive, but the output and the ROI is way higher. I mean, I would never look back at pneumatic as long as, the air compressor and everything else isn't an issue. Just the ROI is absolutely there. We can put out so much more, and employees are happier. They're looking forward to using it.
One thing I would like to throw in there as far as the IQ goes, there's a lot of transfers that will require multi-steps. So on the most simplified is if you want to pre-treat it with heat and then place your transfer, then press it and do your heat print at that. So that's just two. But there are other transfers that do more. Well, the IQ presses can do up to four. So if it's a 4-step process and you have your instructions loaded into the IQ, it's going to automatically go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4. So that saves a lot of time, a lot of labor, where you don't have to go in there and reset your press, change the time or temperature or so. To do it automatically on the fly is incredible. So it really saves a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And just taking out some of that human error, forgetting something. I mean, it's real easy to push a button. It's easier to push, that button, or like you said, when I pushed that button, I've already had it preloaded. hey, when we apply this, we first do 3 to 5 seconds to take the moisture and flatten all the fibers, and then we actually press this for 12 seconds, peel. Hey, you want to press it a second time with parchment or craft? Okay, we'll come back down for 4 or 5 seconds. Now we've restarted it all again. It's, again, awesome technology. So when I first got into the industry, it was, oh gosh, again, this Fusion IQ, this Fusion, sorry, again, it's now the Fusion IQ. I just have the oldest model of this, the original. This came out, around 15 years ago. Before this press, almost every single press was your traditional clamshell. So it's a clamshell because it's like a clam. These clamshells are often a little bit more economical. Again, they don't have all the bells and whistles. When you're working underneath a clamshell, you're best to use it with what we call a heat press caddy. And we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. But if you look at this press, it's very low to the surface. And what a caddy will allow you to do, it'll allow you to raise it or put it on an entire pedestal stand that will allow you to easily thread a garment onto the product. And we're going to talk about that here, more and more. And I even have, right here, I got a bag. Can I take, a product and lay it on top? Yes, absolutely, I can technically. And with the clamshell, your traditional clamshell that's not made by Hotronix, or actually this one without a caddy, it's very difficult to thread or near impossible. Versus, and I'm doing this on the fly, this can be threaded onto the product. Now I have the flattest possible surface to put my transfer on and apply it. Threadability is the way to go whenever possible. It's not always possible, but using a clamshell, I highly suggest looking at a caddy so that you have the ability to thread a garment or an accessory product like this bag, because it really works well, and it allows you to kind of work beneath the press and get under there so you can slide the garment or the accessory onto it. The auto clam also works very well, what's called the power platen, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And that allows us to actually apply heat from the bottom platen. Your traditional heat press, actually until just a few years ago, you're only getting heat from this top heating element. It wasn't within the last 5 or so years that we started seeing now the power platen come out so that you can heat the bottom platen on a traditional press, or the 360 IQ, which has also that bottom heating element. But for, I would say, decades, Mike, when somebody thought heat press, they thought clamshell. Would you agree with all that?
Yeah, that's kind of where it all started. I'm sure that's where stalls had started. Actually, stalls, before they became group stalls acquired a company in Southwest Pennsylvania, and they started building better heat presses, and that's where Hotronix came about. So yeah, it started with the clams, but as the industry grew and new technology came to play, and that's where you started getting the draws and the swings and the electronics and that type of thing. And as the market grew, fabrics have changed. So it used to be everything was cotton or a poly cotton, and now you can get 4 or 5 different kinds of fabrics in there, and it's all affected by the heat on there. Now, when these companies come up with these new products, they're not thinking about Hotronix and Stalls and everybody else heat printing onto these things. They're just making their garment to what they think the market wants, and we have to adjust to them. So that's where you come in with new products, new designs, new features on there. So that's where it all started with the clams, and now we're up to the dual air fusion Pro Place, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But
Talking about some groundbreaking
and
technology.
there's more to come. There's more to come. I often ask the engineers, what's in the pipeline, and they don't want to tell me, because it's not ready yet, and they don't want me to go out and make any comments to anybody. Like this Pro Place, I didn't even hear about it until October at the Atlanta Printing United, and so it's a secret,
Yep.
but there's more in the pipeline.
Yep. All right, we're going to pause for 1 second, Mike, because I was stupid and I thought this computer was charged. Give me 1 second to grab the charger. I need you to. I don't have an extension cord. 1 sec, Mike. Should have had this. Yeah. All right. So, hover heat press, Mike. So, you have your traditional clamshell, but then Hotronix developed kind of a special clamshell. So, when it comes to DTG, DTG came out 15, 20 years ago, very popular. One of the things you have to do with pre-treat or DTG, you have to cure the pre-treat. It's typically going to be done with the heat press. There is a way to do it with a conveyor dryer, but almost everybody who does it with a conveyor dryer also heat presses it. So you can use a clamshell or a drawer press or a swing away to do that very easily. Then when it comes time to curing the DTG ink, you again can use a conveyor dryer or a heat press if you're limited on a budget or space. Now, what's really cool about this hover press is in your traditional clam would come all the way down. And what this hover press is able to do, it's able to come down and hover over the DTG print before you cure it. So anybody who's ever printed DTG, once you print it and you take it off of the printer, that ink is still wet, and you want to get it a little bit dry to the touch before you bring that heating element down onto it. So this hover press allows us to hover over the garment and the print to get that ink to essentially gel and be dry to the touch, not fully cured, so that when we put that parchment, craft, or whatever down to print it with, we don't have any smudging, smearing going on. So the hover press, Mike, it has 4 different ways that you can use this. Can you explain that a little bit to us?
So this is basically what we call our STX20, which is a 16 by 20 auto release clam press. Except this press has an extra feature in that it hovers. And you can set this press up to where I mentioned different, some transfers take more than one step, multi-step transfers. So you can set this up to where the press will press each time, or you can set up to where it will press and then hover, thinking that you're pressing it to pre-treat that, get out all the fluids in that, and then on the next one, when you place your transfer, it will hover. So it can press, hover, or if you want to use the press just for for hovering, it will hover. Now I keep saying hover, press. That's because there's 2 timers on there, and you can set up the timer to where it works differently each time you bring it down, up to 2 times. So, and then the last one, it's press, hover, and then hover press. So just the opposite. So there's 4 ways you can set this up, and whatever works for you, and is of course, do it that way. Everybody's a little bit different. Zach mentioned dryers and this and that, and if you can have dryers, it does take a lot of room. There's a lot of money involved in that. If you strictly want to go with a heat press, it will allow you to do that. It's just on a smaller scale, but this is a unique press. It's nothing out there like this.
Yep. And another thing about those dryers and heat press and everything, electricity, Mike. I mean, you got to be able to handle your equipment. All of these presses, can you tell us how much electricity we need to drive them? I know that the dual air fusion's a little different, but if I had a pneumatic one or the traditional fusion, what type of electricity requirements are there?
Well, we mentioned earlier that a lot of people are doing this in their houses. If you go out to your fuse box and look in there, you're going to see various amps, anywhere from 30 to 5 or so. And so these presses can be used at home. You can plug it into the wall. Just make sure you have enough amps in there. And all the literature that we have will tell you how many amps a particular press will draw. So if it draws 30 amps, don't put it in a 15 amp. So you can you can plug it into the outlet of your house. The critical thing is you cannot use the same outlet to plug in something else because you're already drawing all the amps. So your typical plug in your house has 2 plugs to it, but you can only use one when you got a heat press in there. And if you go to if you even add a power platen that we mentioned earlier, that has to be in a dedicated circuit as well. So there's really nothing special. It's 120 volts, and we can make them in 240 as well. But other than that, it's just simple electricity in your house. Just have a dedicated plug for that. Nothing special about it.
Yeah, that's nice because you want to talk. I know nothing about electricity. I'm pretty useless when it comes to that. Drawer heat press. Okay, so we went over the clam in which nothing is really moving other than the top platen is coming down onto the bottom. The disadvantage of a clam is that you're kind of working underneath the heating element. Now, at the edge, when you're first printing, you can see you're farther away. But if I got to get back, back there, it's just a little bit easier to bring your hands up. That's why I've always been really high on the fusion, and that's why what I like to push. This fusion can do 2 unique things, and Mike, I think it's the only press out there that can be used 2 different ways. This fusion has the ability to have that bottom heating element or bottom platen to come out. This is a drawer function, and it makes it very easy to load garments without ever working underneath the heating element. So you can see I can print this. I think I grabbed a piece of lint. I can thread my garment onto here, and I'm never underneath the heat. It's just, I really like that capability. And that's why, again, it's the #1 selling press for several reasons. 1, you have the drawer function. 2, you can use it as a swing away. So sometimes, some operators may prefer to use the drawer. Others want to be able to swing away. The key here is I'm just never underneath the heat. I've burned myself on clamshells. I've really never burned myself on a swing or the drawer press. It'd be very difficult to do. And again, we've been mentioning it. The IQ has that ability to have those production statistics. So we can preload those variables so we know, pushing a button, hey, this is the time, temperature, and pressure for this temperature, this transfer, and also the management control. You can remotely access the press to turn it on, turn it off, see the production statistics. Really cool technology. Again, 2650, I think, is what this currently lists for, Mike.
That's correct.
Love this press. You'll see more of these at a trade show than any other press.
You mentioned something earlier about this press is the only of its kind that has a draw and a swing. We should put the word legally, the only press that can do that. There are presses out there. Keep in mind, we mentioned earlier that a lot of offshore companies are trying to build knockoff Hotronix heat presses. Now, you never see that on the other American-made presses, which with George Knight and Insta and Hex. You don't see them copying those, but they copy the Hotronix. So if you have a press that's not a Hotronix, that is a draw and a swing combination, then that press was really built by an irreputable company, and you're dealing with a company that you probably shouldn't be dealing with. So it is unique to Hotronix. We do have a patent on it, and our legal department is aggressively going after those companies that are trying to build presses that infringe on our patents. So you don't want to get involved in that. So I would, if you need a draw swing combination press, Hotronix Fusion is really the only option.
No, absolutely. Again, it was groundbreaking. It still is. And the Air Fusion is extremely similar. I mean, if you have this on a tabletop, I mean, they're almost identical. The big difference is one, other than being pneumatic, a pneumatic press does not have the drawer function. I mean, there would be the risk of coming down on nothing, I guess. I would think that's probably why it's not possible, because you can have it pulled out and all of a sudden try to swing, come down, and it's not going to work. So it functions just as a swing, which, again, is so optimal in my opinion, because I'm not a big fan of working underneath the clam and the heating element. I'm the one who will break something or burn myself. I'm the clumsy one. But the Air Fusion, I just can't speak high enough on it. I mean, the ROI from just how many shirts you could put out a day with it versus doing everything manually. We humans, I mean, there's so much strength and that you can do in a day. This takes out the bulk of the physical labor. I mean, when I just have to lower this and raise it, it's not that much effort. But if you do it hundreds of times a day, it builds up. Versus with this press, it has two buttons on the side. So the pneumatic, I push two buttons. You know why we push two buttons? Because it prevents me from being able to put my hand here and press it. I have to have two hands, and I don't think any of us have three that would make it possible to ignore that safety feature. So it comes down, use over two buttons that'll bring it down onto the garment. It's making it pretty much impossible to pinch yourself when it comes down.
Yeah, there's a couple safety features worth mentioning. That two button is one of them. And there's an anti-tie down, which means you cannot take one of those buttons and tie it down or tape it down and then start using the press with one hand. So you have to press both buttons at the same time. And if you look at the press in the position that it's in now, there's not much room between the upper and lower once it covers the bottom platen. That's also by design. It keeps the operator from getting their hand in there. There's just not much room to do that. And when it comes down instantly. So it's not like it has a long stroke where you might be able to get your hand underneath there. So those are two safety features that really aren't brought up, but they are important.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, one, it's heat, and two, it's pressure. I mean, you could break fingers if those
Oh
safety
yeah,
features are there. Also, I don't know why I was breezing through this. You have your tabletop, that's the left photo, and then you have your pedestal. So you have both options. Very important, Mike, to choose the right one at time of purchase, right? You can buy one and change it out yourself. It's just not fun. So it's
yeah.
very important you order, get the right version that you want.
Yeah, you use the right terminology. So if you just say air fusion, we at Hotronix, when we hear the word air fusion, we assume the pedestal version because that was the first one that came out, and then the tabletop came out. So and it has happened more than once that someone ordered a air fusion and got not the one they wanted, but the other one. So I would get into the habit of stating a tabletop air fusion or air fusion pedestal. So
Yep.
if you don't use those words, there is the possibility that you're going to get the wrong press. And as Zach said, you can change them over in the field, but it's not easy. It's expensive. Basically it's shipping that pedestal and then having at least two people to pick it up off the pedestal and put it on the other. And then you got to send back the pedestal. So just use the right terminology when you order so you get the right press.
Yep. They also, both versions come with a foot pedal. So you are able to use a foot pedal with it. Just in my shop, we kind of like the physical portion of it. But
It's important that the foot pedal. Yes, it does come with a foot pedal, but you can actually change that by press of a button, where you can actually move it back and forth with your hands.
yep, that's what
So
we do.
if you feel like you don't want to use the foot pedal, press a button, just move it with your hand, bring it back. You still have to use both hands to operate it to bring it down.
Yep.
So and
But
as it's moving, if that press is coming back over, and you happen to get your hand in the way, it's not coming so hard that it's going to hit your hand and hurt you. You can actually stop it. So it just
yep.
slides over and then ready to be descended. So
Yeah,
it doesn't come hard. As a matter of
Mike.
fact, you can change the speed at which it moves back and forth. I recommend not doing that because some people, they're in a hurry, they want to get done. It's at the optimum speed when it leaves the factory. Don't try to speed it up, and then it's not going to place as well when it gets there. It's going to bounce around or so. But you can change the speed if it ever would come up.
Yep, and you did bring up a great point, and I should mention the foot pedal does not lower it; it just swings it. So if I'm on here, and I just pressed a shirt and I pulled it off, it can swing, or I can, and now it's over here. I load my next garment, I push the foot pedal, it brings it back over. Then I'm using my fingers. It is not actually lowering it because that would then not be as safe because you could be
Yeah.
lowering it on yourself.
You notice Zach was using his hands to move it back and forth. So yeah, it can do that.
Yep, and yeah, there's nothing hot up here, and yeah, no, it never burn my ourselves on one of these. Now, this is kind of some of the new stuff that we're seeing a lot of at the shows because really DTF has been one of the big propellers at the dual air fusion, essentially multiple platens on the same press, bottom platens, I should say. So the dual air fusion, I mean, it's been out for years, but I see a lot more of them nowadays because again, DTF, it first came about. I mean, and still, it's primarily a warm or a cold peel application. Now, there's definitely hot peel film, and what that allows, I mean, again, transfers are peeled at one of three times, essentially. Hot, instant, press comes up, you're immediately going to pull that transfer. Or you're going to warm peel. You're going to give it a couple of seconds. You don't take the garment off the press, but it allows you to just pull it after a few seconds. And then you have a traditional cold peel, which you're going to take it off the press because even the bottom, even though it's not heated, it's still conducting heat and kind of having it. You want to pull that off, the garment off the press, let it sit off to the side, cool 20, 30 seconds or several minutes, then peel the transfer off. And these dual are real nice for, a lot of those warm peel and even sometimes the cold peel. I bet a cold peel would work better on this dual because I'm not constantly coming down with heat at all times on the same platen. I kind of have it has a little bit of time to cool in between, and I can be threading a garment onto a platen while the other one is printing. I mean, think like a screen print press. If you had one platen that rotates, you can't load a second garment at the same time. You're going to be a lot slower. So the dual, I see a lot more of these in the past few years than I did, 5 or so years ago, Mike. And then, like you mentioned, this is kind of getting a nice little update. The dual air fusion, you can see on here, above mounted is actually a laser alignment system. And you actually can buy the laser alignment system and use it with any of these press. Well, not really the 360, but you can use it with either of these and mount it to the side. But with the dual air fusion, it's actually shooting down right onto that platen, and it allows you to align that transfer even easier. Now, with DTF, it is direct to film, and film is clear. Before DTF, you could buy PET film and screen print onto it. I've done it. It's more expensive than paper. So for many years, we've always printed on most plastisol transfers of paper. HTV is going to be on a clear carrier, and you can see through it, and that makes it a little bit easier. What the Dual Air Fusion Pro Place IQ allows you to do now is instead of shooting lasers onto the bottom platen, it's actually sitting right above the platen and projecting the actual design you're going to apply, so that when you take your transfer, you can line it up and kind of mirror it. I've got another slide here, Mike, that I kind of want to show. So again, you have it mounted, and if you see here, it's actually projecting the design onto the product. A lot of your transfers nowadays, DTF, HTV, always a given. It's going to be clear. It allows you to just put it right over and nail that location. Pretty groundbreaking technology. And Mike, I think you even said that if you had an existing dual air fusion, you can actually retrofit it. You can actually purchase the Pro Place IQ by itself and put it on there if you want to use.
It's simple to do. You just remove the lasers that are on the one you have, and what you see on your right is the retrofit. You just slide those down into the post and tighten the screw, and you're in business.
And Mike, I don't even know if these are. I know they're being demoed. Like you said, you learned in October. I actually learned, I want to say in July, because I went to a summit event, and Josh Ellsworth. Anybody who wants to know anything about heat pressing, check out Stahl's YouTube channel and all the videos Josh has made through the years. But he actually had a slide at an event, and I was like, whoa, that's different. And I don't even know if they're being shipped yet. Are they, Mike? I mean, it's such
they're not. They're as I mentioned before, it was first displayed at a show at the Print United in October in Atlanta. In January, we had the impressions at Long Beach, and there were a couple of them there. And they're in production now. We have not shipped any yet, but we do have a pre-order list. So if anybody wants to order this, get with Zach and get on the pre-order list. There's no obligation to buy by getting on the list, but when your name comes up, you'll be contacted, and then at that point, decide if or not that you want to follow through with the purchase. But we're expecting these to be on the shelf. I heard spring. I'm more comfortable with spring/summer because things always seem to get delayed. And the first couple of months, which is very soon, I think it's going to be in March, when we're going to start seeing these on the truck out the door. And it's probably going to take March, April, May to cover those that are already on the pre-order list. So, and keep in mind, nobody wants to be first when it comes to new technology out there, but these Hotronix heat presses and these products have been around such a long time. This is really not new technology to us. So it's a game changer, and it's because of the DTF. The speed at which you can produce a DTF transfer is so great now that you need to have this automation. Anything that saves time, placing the order or placing the transfer, putting your garment onto the bottom platen, all these things that we've talked about, all save time, and that's money. So we have a nice little worksheet. I actually sent it to Zach this morning. It's a return on investment piece, and it lists all the different things to take into consideration when you are producing a printed T-shirt. And that's including in that is placing the transfer and loading the garment onto the platen. How many on one particular job? What's the dwell time? So you take that into effect. So you can go back and figure out the return of investment on something like this. It's a nifty little piece there, and there's a video that's included where Josh Ellsworth, who Zach mentioned, explains it in detail. It's pretty simple to understand. Now, we're not accountants; we're basically production and salespeople. So, it's not so complicated that we can't understand it, but it does put peace of mind as to if this is a good decision to go with this particular press with this particular feature. It's a nice piece.
Well, again, one of my favorite things about heat pressing is it has the smallest learning curve out of any process by a mile. I mean, it takes years to master screen printing. It takes a lot of time to learn embroidery and know the needle size and all that. When it comes to heat pressing, it comes down to, one, using good equipment, but two, applying the transfer at the correct time, temperature, and pressure. That, the IQ stores all that. I just got to make sure I select the right one. That takes a lot of the human error out of it. And then actually placing this transfer properly on the garment, nailing a left chest or being across evenly. This is just one more tool that's been added to the press that allows you to reduce that human error potential. So yeah, incredible technology. And now let's talk about some of the accessories, because Mike, we've talked about it. Number one accessory, in our opinion, is the quick slip lower platen protector. Okay, so on a press, you have your platen, and it's very tight on here, but you have this, and it's coated with, I want to say it's rubber, Mike. But if you were to load a garment onto there, it's kind of, it's not tacky, but it's grippy, and it makes it hard to slip a garment on there, versus if I have the quick slip pad protector on there. You want to talk about time is money. I mean, you can so quickly slide onto the platen. If you don't have that quick slip, you're not going to be quickly slipping. And if you're not quickly slipping, you're not really threading the garment as efficiently. I mean, you're barely not. Threadability. I think it's pretty cool that Hotronix coined this word, and it's a true. You trademarked it. I mean, it's a real word to be able to take something and thread it like that. Yes, I print upside down. That's the one thing with threadability. Guess how much that matters? Zero. If that's how you've done it, it's so easy. There's really no advantage, Mike, of being able to print it and see the logo at you. Just throw it on there. It slides so quick. It's efficiency. And you guys have these quick slip protectors for the majority of your platens, whether it's that 11 by 15, 16 by 20. You got to buy them. And, as you print thousands of shirts, they'll wear a little bit on the corners, and once in a while you'll replace it. But it's a must, Mike. I mean, you're making a mistake, in my opinion, if you're pressing without one of these. Every press I sell, it comes with it. I force my customer to buy it.
Yeah, it obviously, you showed how easy it is to thread on there, and as you did that, if you're doing the backside, you can actually roll it over without having to take the garment off. So it saves time. But even if you don't thread it on there, even if you're doing it the old style, if you don't have a protector on there, that garment's going to catch those corners every single time you put it on or take it off. And eventually it's going to start pulling those corner pieces of rubber on the corners up. So now you got a little bit of an issue. You're going to have to replace the rubber, and it's not hard, but it's very inconvenient. So it's really important that these covers are on there. It's almost a must. I mean, it's almost as important as heat, time, and pressure.
Yeah, once there are needs, that Pro Place is kind of more of a want. This is absolutely a need. You have to have it, in our opinion. Now, here's something that's a little bit different, and that is the silicone heat press upper platen cover. I don't have one of these, but I kind of do. So I think Stahls sells one, and they call it the application pad, and it's pretty much the exact same material, except if you get the silicone heat press upper platen cover, actually has Velcro on the side, so you can easily take it on and off the press. This upper platen cover, can you tell us a little bit about it, Mike, and why it's a great tool for a press during certain applications?
Well, the real purpose of the application pad is to enable pressure to be applied evenly around obstructions like buttons and zippers, hems, and that type of thing. That's really the driving force behind it. Ours is a little bit different than Stahls in that ours Velcros to the upper platen, so you don't have to put it on, take it off like you would if it wasn't attached to it. And again, we're going back to speed. We want to be as quick as possible. Now, by having any type of pad, whether it be the one attached to the upper platen or the throwdown sheet that Zach was showing, it will affect the surface temperature. So keep that in mind. You may have to increase your temperature a little bit to get that surface temperature back to where it would be if you didn't have it on there. But again, the key purpose of it is to get a good firm seal around those edges of buttons and zippers and hems, because without it, there will be a little gap there that didn't really get pressed down as hard as the rest of them, and that's not what you want. You want it all the way down on there. So it's a nice product.
Yep. Like we were kind of saying, it's really good for your poly performance wear, those synthetic fabrics a lot of the time. Because like Mike, you just said, it's a barrier. You have to compensate for that barrier, which means you need to raise your heat. And you don't really want to press transfers that were designed, maybe to be applied at 375, because if now I have this barrier, now I'm going up to like 400 degrees or something. It takes a little bit of testing to find the right temperature or changing one of the other variables. Maybe you increase the time, maybe you increase the pressure. Anytime you're creating that barrier or you're adjusting one variable, you're going to have to compensate with another. And that's why, in our shop, it's funny. We never screw up shirts that we heat press, but anything that we screen print, oh my gosh, I've screwed up so many shirts, and that's why we hoard the mess ups, and that's what we use to dial in something like this. I'll take a rag shirt and hey, this material, this is the temperature and pressure and the results we got. All right, some other accessories, and we kind of talked about these earlier. You have a heat press caddy and you have a counter caddy. Now, the heat press caddy, don't confuse it with a pedestal stand because it technically is different. They look very similar, but it's not mounted the same exact way. These caddies are really optimal for the clamshell press. Why? Because a clamshell is not a drawer or a swing away that has that extra space. I've got this space here and the clamshell doesn't have it. Well, the caddy gets us off of the table and allows us to have that threadability capability. So really powerful accessory. I mean, Mike, we talked about the other day, I'm a dealer and I've always overlooked this, and it's extremely important if you're looking for that threadability. If you're using that hover press and you're constantly curing DTG prints, having this caddy will really help you from a speed standpoint. And when you're doing something like that DTG with the hover, you got wet ink. And if you can't thread, it's real easy to bump it and all of a sudden you've smeared the ink. You have to be able to efficiently thread, especially in that case. So, if you bought a hover, I think it's almost a necessity to be looking at one of these types of caddies so you have that space that you really need.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that you would go to these sporting events. The caddy really helps to put that heat press in a position to do your heat printing at the event. So if it's on a caddy, you can roll it into the event, and but if you have a table, you can place the counter caddy on a table. But both of these really are essential when you're off site.
Yep. Well, and we actually have a third option, but don't confuse it with the caddy, because the heat print equipment cart is impressive in many ways. One, you could put a dual air fusion on that, and a dual air fusion is, gosh, Mike, I was looking at it the other day. I want to say it's like 300-400 pounds. I mean, it's at least a couple pounds. It's heavy, very heavy. And this cart supports it, but not only does it support it, it will allow you to put it at different heights. And that can't be stated enough. I mean, I'm a short guy. I'm 5'8" on a good day. On a good day, Mike, I'm 5'8". I've had employees that are 6'3", 6'4". Their leverage is at a different height than mine. And you, again, talk about efficiency and not making your employees work harder than they need to. Work smart and hard. Don't work just hard. I want to be able to easily see it and also thread it. Like right now, I'm kind of high. My arms are high. That's going to get old throughout the day. Versus right here, it's kind of like hitting my hip. Again, I'm shorter and I'm not the one using the press. But having the right height for your press is very important. This heat equipment cart, heat print equipment cart, that ability to go up and down and adjust based on who it is or roll it around, that portability, it's not cheap, but wow, is it nice? And that's never going to go bad. You could use that for a lot of different things throughout the years.
The longest lasting piece of equipment in your shop.
Yeah, absolutely. But
it's very, very, very sturdy.
It's amazing. Okay, interchangeable platens. This I just absolutely love. So if you buy like a 16 by 20 press, it's going to come with a 16 by 20 bottom platen. What you can do is you can buy accessory platens, and you can buy them individually, and sometimes they're sold kind of in a set at a discount. So what it allows you to do is to print something smaller. So I've got a small one here. This is like optimal for a lot of our bags or maybe a baby shirt without too big of a print. So we will use this at certain times. This one, for example, may be better, again, for some youth shirts and like a hooded sweatshirt in which you have that pouch that could be in your way. You have circle platens. I showed my 4x4, the sleeve platen. There's all types of platens like these that just allows you to get the flattest possible printing surface. So I have this button-down polo. If I were to throw it on there, I absolutely could, and there's a couple different ways. I'm going to show you another tool you can use to be able to get that higher, that perfect raised portion of the decoration. And again, using one of these applications pads or the cover, it will, have that let you do that. But what I would do with this, I'd rather use this 4x4, covers. I'll put that on the bottom platen. I'll thread this on there. My buttons are in no way are they running into a problem. My print surface is the highest surface on the platen, which is important. So interchangeable platens, you saw how quick and easy it is. I mean, there's a little, I don't know what we call it. Might forget what it's called. The plunger, maybe that's what we call it. But look how quick and easy I just went from a 16x20 to a 4x4 press. It's that quick. And what's just real important is this bottom platen it's not that it should, it cannot be bigger than the top heating element. I mean, that won't work. That will not work. We actually have a pretty cool slide here. I'm going to actually come back to it. That shows all the different platen sizes here and which machines it works with. And if you see on the bottom kind of right corner and it's like, hey, these don't work with these, it's because they're just a bigger bottom platen it's bigger than the top platen, and that's just not what you want. But you have your 4x4, again, great for your left chest, your sleeves, locker tags. You have the 7x7 round, 6x10, 8x10, 11x15. You have a hat bill press, which is pretty cool. You have a shoe press, a can cooler press, a sleeve leg press. Anybody who's done sleeves and leggings, using pillows can be a hassle versus being able to get on there super easy. They also now have the double sleeve leg platen, so you can print multiple at a time, and then even the tag along platen. I'm seeing this a lot more because DTF, the ink doesn't spread like a traditional plastisol transfer. So, and it's able to hold very fine detail. It allows you to tag products easier than it ever has been. And it has such a low run. DTF can be all one-off. I'm seeing this tag-along platen a lot nowadays, Mike, at shows, just because, again, DTF has opened up a new avenue, and with this tag-along, it makes you twice as fast if you're going to put a custom neck tag on the garment, because you are printing two different locations at the exact same time. Pretty cool.
Overproduction.
Yeah, I mean, it very popular. You can see. I don't even know how Hotronix did this, but they found a way to get that quick slip pad cover on there even as well. Even with that unique.
It does come with its it's a specific cover on there, and also. It's not mentioned enough that when you use this tag along platen, it guarantees that your shirt's put on there straight. Because that's the only way you can do it. I mean, and then if you look at the extended area, that's where the tag would go, where the garment would go in there, and there was a space between the dark colored pad and the rest of the platen. You just pull the shirt up there, or the back of the collar of the shirt, and wrap it around the front, and you do both of them at the same time.
Yep. And again, it's not like you bought a whole new piece of equipment to do that. It's just a quick accessory that takes 5 seconds to swap out. I mean, and yeah, gaining a lot of popularity. Now, Mike, I want to really talk about this power platen because I feel like this is overlooked. we kind of mentioned it earlier. Uh, the days of just printing on cotton and 50-50 blends are way gone. I mean, every day there's more and more products coming out that are a tri-blend or they have some type of synthetic material or they're 100% poly. I mean, 100% polyester shirts are purchased way more now than 15, 20 years ago. And what the power platen is, it's kind of two pieces. First, you have a controller. Your controller is going to control your time and your temperature. So what the power platen is a bottom heating element. And I have not seen this anywhere else, Mike. I don't think anybody has it, or they're going to knock you off. Try. But you put it on here just like any other platen. And I'll connect it to my controller. And now this is going to heat up just like my top heating element. Why is that so important? What is the advantage of this? Well, cotton and your 50-50 shirts, they can be pressed at 375 or even lower, and they're not going to scorch. They're not going to leave a box from the press. Now, if you take a 100% polyester shirt, and not every, you could do white shirts and you're never going to really see the box because it was never really dyed, versus a black shirt, a navy shirt, a red shirt. If you apply too much heat to synthetic material, you're going to scorch it and you're going to leave a permanent box that will never wash out. You have ruined essentially that area. And to me, I hate seeing a box. And it's kind of funny, you'll go to shows and you'll see a lot of even decorators walking around and they're all proud of how they decorate and their quality. And what do you see on their shirt? You see a heat press box. And I hate it. It makes me cringe. The power platen. It is game changing. Hotronix is the only one I've ever seen do it, in which we have that bottom heating element. And by having that bottom heating element, we're able to reduce the scorching on those synthetic fabrics. You can now, with confidence, print 100% poly or other blends and not worry about leaving a box on the garment. You can use this with most of Hotronix presses. You're not going to want to try to use it with the Fusion IQ because it has the drawer function, and that's just not safe to potentially have that. Even just not don't really use it there. But if you had a clamshell or the Fusion IQ or the dual Fusion IQ, I mean, I've known shops that have a dual Fusion IQ and both of their bottom platens have it. Really powerful. It does, because it has an heating element, it does draw some juice. You do not want to plug this in to the same outlet. But yeah, Mike, it comes in different sizes, just like our traditional platens. It's a game changer. Again, Hotronix is always an innovator.
It comes in 4 different sizes: the 16 by 20, the 6 by 20, which is the leg sleeve size, the 11 by 15, which by the way, the 11 by 15 optional platen is our #1 selling optional platen. And the reason for that is that it's a good size for youth large and women's garments. 16 by 20 is a little bit big for those, and you have to almost stretch the garment to get it on there. So 11 by 15, and then the last one is a 6 by 6. And the other part of this, other the platens, is the controller, which Zach mentioned. You only need one controller because you plug the platen into that one controller. So you don't need a controller for all 4 sizes. And he mentioned using this on the clams and the air fusions. That is correct. We don't recommend it for the fusion. Not that it won't work. It would work. But Zach mentioned the draw and the swing. If you use the machine properly, you're going to use the draw or the swing. And when you're using one, the other locks into place. Well, we can't guarantee that somebody in the field is not going to pull the drawer out and swing it at the same time. So when that happens, it can be, if it's on a pedestal particularly, it can be out of balance. And actually, you wouldn't put it on a pedestal, but if it's on a equipment cart or so, and there's nothing around it, then it could fall. So you can use it on there, but our literature will say not to use it on there. But and if we know that you're ordering it for a fusion, we will probably tell you that we can't offer it. But you should know that it will work on there if you run the machine properly.
Mike,
And one other thing, how does this all work? Well, because you're getting bottom heat, the majority of your heat is coming from the bottom, not the top. So your instructions that you get for your transfer is going to say something like 375 heat and so many times and pressure. Well, they're not taking into consideration that you're using bottom heat. So you're going to have to do a little experimenting to zero in on what is the best temperatures when you use a power platen. But the reason it doesn't scorch is because the heat on the top is a lot less than what the instructions may say. And people will oftentimes use that application pad as a barrier, thinking that it will keep that from scorching. It doesn't really work that way. No matter what you put on there, if you get to a certain temperature, it's going to scorch. So the only true way to eliminate the scorching is with bottom heat, a power platen. And this comes into play with the 360 IQ hat press as well. That has bottom heat.
Yep. Well, and you mentioned 11 by 15. I'm glad you did, because I didn't know that was the best selling. Something to also keep in mind, because 11 by 15, what's also cool, and I don't know if this is the case, the power plant, I don't have an 11 by 15, but Mike, there's nothing stopping me when I put a platen on here. I've got the wrong one with this. You can go this direction or this direction. Again, I'm not sure if that's still the case with the power platen, but if you need longer print area going vertically versus horizontally, you absolutely can. There's nothing saying I have to. And again, that 11 by 15, if I'm on a 16 by 20 press, I still am not wider on the bottom than I am on the top. So it would work.
Yeah, you have a, I believe you have a power platen there. I thought, didn't you pick one up earlier?
Yep.
Yeah, look at the underneath it at the the piece that drops down into the press. If it's the same as what's on an optional platen.
Identical. Yep.
So that being the case, yeah, you can set it in there landscape or horizontally.
Portrait. Yep. No, and again, newer technology. I've yet to see it anywhere else. So outside of the platens, and I do like these still, just because maybe I've got like one shirt and I don't feel like taking it off. You have what are called print perfect pads, and it's rubber. And like you see, you can cut them up. We like to use them for like sleeves. So I can throw this in the sleeve of a shirt, put it on there. Now I have a nice even level. I just have to compensate for the pressure because I've brought it up more than half an inch by using a print perfect pad. But these are just a great accessory. It's very similar to a pillow, essentially. It allows you to create that raised surface so that it is the high point. It's your peak.
Yeah, it allows you to isolate an area.
There we go. That's the right word to use. Mike, through this PowerPoint, we went through just about everything Hotronix sells. Hotronix, again, is the leader. It's not even a question who the leader is when it comes to heat pressing equipment. Again, made in the USA, number one. They do have the best-selling presses in the world, not just the US. You get what you pay for. The peace of mind. That's a big one for me. The peace of mind of whether I do something stupid with it and break it myself, I can, ship it, get it taken care of, or I'm in a neighboring state. I've been to the Pennsylvania facility. They're extremely nice. I've also, again, picked up a press at the Pennsylvania facility. Presses they weigh a lot. They're kind of expensive to ship. And again, Mike, I don't know if you've been there, but PNC Park, beautiful in Pittsburgh. Totally worth the trip to go pick up the heat press, save a couple $100, check out that ballpark. Um, but
You
yeah,
know,
I
we've been adding on to that plant in the last several years, and the last one came in this past summer. It's a state of the art type production now. We've got all the most current or latest tools that you can use to build for a machine shop. It's really incredible. It's located in an area that you can't get there by mistake. It is kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's actually
it's
between
up real nowhere.
Pittsburgh and Morgantown, West Virginia. But you can't get there by mistake. But if you ever happen to be in the Uniontown area, it if you have an opportunity to visit the plant, it's worth seeing. And as I said, there's more to come, and I believe that's going to be with the plant as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, anything stalls related, the stalls group, um, absolutely love. I mean, it just, yeah, everything is great. You can go to stalls.com, Transfer Express, One Step Papers, and a lot of these are, competitors of mine technically, but no, I mean, everybody loves stalls. The Long Beach Trade Show is the biggest trade show of the year. That was last month. Who was the very first booth that you saw? Stalls. Why? Because yeah, they're a leader. Hotronix. Yeah, you just cannot go wrong. I forgot to add a slide, but I am a Hotronix dealer. You can find all of Hotronix presses, accessories, anything that Hotronix sells, I have listed on our website, printphase.com. So print, P-R-I-N-T, phase, P-H-A-S-E.com. I'll add a slide before we release the video. And, all your dealers have to sell the presses. You're sent, list them at the same price. And you get what you pay for. Mike, again, love everything Hotronix does. I really appreciate your time joining us. Hopefully, our viewers have a better idea of what route they want to go for their next heat press purchase and what's coming in the future. Again, next week we actually have a trade show, and then the week after that I have another trade show, and I definitely hope to make some videos on that Pro Place because, yeah, that's kind of the next best thing, and definitely groundbreaking technology. Hotronix is always innovating, never done, and I can't wait to see what's to come because you've kind of teased us a little bit what might be coming. It's kind of like the developers with DecoNetwork. Don't tell me what you're doing because there's always that chance. I may say something I shouldn't.
They make sure they don't tell me too much. But Zach, I would like to say I appreciate you asking me to be part of this. I actually learned a lot myself. My background is with the equipment. I have very little opportunity to deal with the actual using of the transfers, but that's changing because I've stepped in a new role where it's going to be required. I mean, that's a good thing. So just based on your experiences, I've learned a lot about what the actual decorator is going through. And by the way, never over press. Never put the pressure at the max. That's why you broke that press.
Oh, yeah.
You don't. Too much pressure is not always a good thing, as you found out.
Goldilocks, too little, too much, just right. Yeah,
that's right.
You have those three variables. You got to have the right time, the right temperature, the right pressure. And if there is one thing that is physical, especially on like one of these, I have this dial. It's very easy for me to over pressure it. It's also actually pretty easy for me to, tell it, hey, I want this much PSI to come down. And I have, one of these on there, and now I'm raised in too much. Yeah, time, temperature, and pressure. But again, there's not an easier decoration process to master within a couple hours. I mean, really. But everything's easier when you're using the right tools, Mike.
That's correct.
And you can't go wrong with the Hotronix. thank you again so much for your time. Hopefully our viewers found this helpful. I think they did. And look forward to seeing you at a trade show at minimum Printing United of Long Beach.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks so much, Mike, for your time.
Goodbye.